Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivadadhari Shodanandana Vrajadana Ranjana Shodanandana Vrajadana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jai Shri Shri Gauranitai, Jai Shri Shri Radha Govardhana ki jai, Krishna Balaram Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Jai Vrinda Devi Tulsi Devi Maharani Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi, Guru and Gauranga, Gaur, Amanandi, Hari, Hari, Bo. So, dear devotees, my apologies, Bhanu Swami's gone away and Guru to Prabhu gave me a call. So, all the blessings of many of senior Vaishnavas here. So, somehow or other Krishna has stuck me here for some reason. So please forgive me and bear with me. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We are at the very end of the first canto, chapter 19, the very last few verses. We'll actually finish the chapter and the canto today. Very wonderful. So, Narayanam Namaskrityam Narocharam Narotaram Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraya Nastapadeshu Badeshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Uttama Shoke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So repeat after me. Yatshchotavyam mato japyam. Yatkatavyam nibi prabhu. Smatavyam bhajan. I've lost the tune, excuse me. Smatavyam bhajani yamba. Bruhi yadva vipayayam. Okay, word for word. Yat, whatever. Shrotavyam, worth hearing. Ato, thereof. Japyam, chanted. Yat, what also. Katavyam, executed. Nibihi, by the people in general. Prabhu, O Master. Smatavyam, that which is remembered. Bhajaniyam, worshipable. Va, either. Bruhi, please explain. Yadva, what it may be. Vipayam, against the principle. So I'll do the last three verses since there's no purport to this verse, a short purport to the next, and no purport to the last. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Oops. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. Repeatedly, please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. So next verse 39, Nunam Bhagavato Brahman, Griheshu Grihamedinam, Na Lakshate Yavastanam, Apigo Dahanam Kwachit. Translation and purport. O powerful Brahmana, it is said that you hardly stay in the houses of men long enough to milk a cow. Purport. Saints and sages in the renounced order of life go to the houses of the householders at the time they milk the cows, early in the morning, and ask some quantity of milk for subsistence. A pound of milk fresh from the milk bag of a cow is sufficient to feed an adult with all vitamin values, and therefore saints and sages live only on milk. Even the poorest of the householders keep at least 10 cows, each delivering 12 to 20 quarts of milk, and therefore no one hesitates to spare a few pounds of milk for the mendicants. It is a duty of householders to maintain the saints and sages like the children. So a saint like Sukadeva Goswami would hardly stay at the house of a householder for more than 5 minutes in the morning. In other words, such saints are very rarely seen in the houses of householders, and Maharaj Parikshit therefore prayed to him to instruct him as soon as possible. The householders also should be intelligent enough to get some transcendental information from visiting sages. The householder should not foolishly ask a saint to deliver what is available in the market. That should be the reciprocal relation between the saints and the householders. And the last verse, Sutta Uvacha Evam Abhasita Prishta Sayagna Salaksnaya Gira Patyabhastadamagyo Bhagavan Badarayani. Translation, Sri Sutta Goswami. The king thus spoke and questioned the sage using sweet language. Then the great and powerful personality, the son of Vyasadeva, who knew the principles of religion, began his reply. So that's Canto 2 coming up. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the first canto, 19th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Appearance of Sukadeva Goswami. I'll read 37, 38, 39, and 3 questions. These are the last remarks before Sukadeva Goswami speaks by Maharaj Parikshit. This is text 37. You are the spiritual master of great saints and devotees. I am therefore begging you to show the way of perfection for all persons, and especially for one who is about to die. Please let me know what a man should hear, chant, remember and worship, and also what he should not do. Please explain all this to me. O powerful Brahma, it is said that you hardly stay in the houses of men long enough to milk a cow. Om Ganati Mirandasya Ganam Ganam Sarakaya Sakshus Militam Jena Tasmae Shri Guruve Namah Vanchakalpaturubhishya Kripa Sindhu Vevicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. So, extraordinary setting. I was just thinking in this setting, it's I was trying to work out if it was bona fide me to sit here amongst such an exalted assembly, but we know in this assembly, Narada Muni was here, and what else was there? 3 Saksha-avatars. Parashuran was there, and of course Srila Vyasadeva, and many other exalted Vaishnavas. So I guess Sukadeva Goswami set a precedent of sort. So this is you could say, the setting of the Srimad Bhagavatam, a very beautiful setting, because the setting is made up of wonderful personalities, just like we have today. It's a very auspicious setting, an auspicious place. They're on the bank of the Ganga, Jamuna, the Ganga, and like here we're in a very nice setting, New Govardhana, and it's all conducive for hearing. And also the most auspicious day, or last day of Kartik today. It is said today that Srimati Radharani is beaming with extra mercy. So if you have inner spiritual desires that you want to pray for, today is the day. And because often the month of Kartik is described as a big sale. Like they have the big sales in the stores, and you can get things that are normally quite expensive at a very heavily discounted price. So bhakti in the month of Kartik, you can get more for less. So it's a good day for spiritual shopping today. So if you have some very deep spiritual desires you want to pray for and hopefully have fulfilled, I would highly recommend that you choose today. Anyhow, it's Kartik. So you have a very nice setting. We've been hearing the arrival of Sukadeva Goswami, and as soon as he arrived, the mood changed because he was being chased by young kids, and they were teasing him, perhaps throwing rocks at him, and other people were following him around, and no one could understand his exalted position. But as soon as he arrived in this assembly of very qualified people, immediately they could understand this is and they also knew him by reputation that he was a very exalted Vaishnava. And the Emperor of the world, for our guest here, is about to leave his body in 7 days. So these questions are very, very important, and interestingly enough, he's asking these questions on behalf of everybody. He's not just thinking of himself. What should men do? What should people... Men means men, women, everybody. What should you do at the time of death, just before death, especially if you're given notice of death? we've all been given notice because birth means death, isn't it? So we celebrate birthdays, but actually technically they're death days. You're one day closer to death. I don't know what we're celebrating, but I guess if you're a transcendentalist, it's something worth celebrating. But if you're embodied, conditioned soul, engaging in sinful activities, karmically deviated activities, then you shouldn't be looking forward to death too much. You probably should keep celebrating those birthdays. Try and put it off as long as you can, because the reactions are there. So it's very interesting that he asks this question: what should we hear, chant, remember, and worship? But also what we should not do. So that's quite an important question also, because often we hear everyone's on their own path. All paths lead to the same thing. Do what you feel. It's like everyone's different. What you feel, or what you hear, or what you find on YouTube, or what the taxi driver might tell you, whatever it is, it's all one, all the same. But he's saying here, he's actually telling me what not to do. So there is a correct path for spiritual salvation and understanding, and there's some deviation that can take part also along the way. So we need to clearly know what to do and what not to do, not just do whatever. So people, unfortunately, in spiritual life, everyone takes it like whatever, In material education, you have to go to professors and learn properly and get your degrees and qualifications. But spiritual life is whatever you think is fine, which has become the norm in this modern age. But we can see here it's completely different. There's very qualified personalities, and there's submission, there's humility, and questions. You ask, that we know. How can we know something that's beyond us? The spiritual world is beyond this universe, and the greatest scientists in this world are still scratching their heads trying to figure out what's going on in this universe, what to speak of all the other universes, what to speak of beyond the universe, the spiritual realm, what to speak of not being the body, which is the ABC to spiritual life. Srila Prabhupada would often say, where's that university which teaches about the soul? The most important thing, because once the body dies, there's not a lot of interest in that body. Nobody keeps their body in the cupboard at home because they love them. And because, I've said this before, you would get some complaints from the neighbours after some time. What is this smell coming out of your house? So bodies aren't what we are. We are spiritual living entities. So the questions that have been asked here, Maharaj Pariksit, he's not asking about what's going to happen to my body. You don't need to ask an elevated spiritual person what's going to happen to a body. There's three things that are going to happen to it. It's either going to be eaten by worms, it's going to turn into ashes, or eaten by wild animals if you die in the forest somewhere and become the stool of those animals. So that body's going to become stool, ashes, or food for worms. So you don't have to ask a guru that question. You can go and ask the guy that works in the funeral parlour, he'll tell you. So that's not spirit. So he's not asking about that. And he's about to die. He's not lamenting about his material situation. And the Bhagavatam is so wonderful because the examples are given are so extraordinary. This is the emperor of the world. He has opulences beyond our imagination. He has extraordinary family members and dear friends that surround, opulences that you can't imagine. So knowledgeable, he's so handsome and beautiful. He has all those attractive material qualities that people are hankering for. He has all that. He has power, fame, wealth, beautiful wife, and so on and so forth. What people dream about, they think if they win the lottery they can buy all this stuff, but it doesn't work out that way. Anyway, I won't sidestep. But he's not worried about all these things. He's very quickly, as soon as he was given notice that he was going to die by the curse of a young Brahmin, he immediately just dropped those things like you would drop a tissue after using it. You'd blow your nose and throw it in the bin. That's how much attachment he really had to all these things, even though he was absorbed in them and he was a great ruler and he was very beautiful. But no actual attachment. His real attachment was to the spiritual subject matters, and now it's been manifested. He's appeared in this assembly and he's asked very wonderful questions, and those questions are saturated with compassion for all of us. because he's asking questions to benefit all others. And most people at the time of death, they're worried about so many things, isn't it? Their family, and not only that, they're trying to control from the grave. I'll set up a family trust, and they can only do this for the money and all the stuff that I gathered. It's all mine. Even if I'm going to die, I'm still going to control it. So they get the lawyers in and they manipulate all these things. And if they're spiteful, they'll write someone out of the will because they didn't bow down to them or obey them, or they didn't like them. They want to hurt them, or by writing them out of the will. So they're absorbing all these sort of things at the time of death. Or others, they're absorbing what they call the bucket list. I've only got the notice from my doctor that I got cancer. I've only got 2 months to go. Let's go for it. And off they go. They go off to Disneyland. They jump off balloons out in the sky and go bungee jumping. What else do they do? All sorts of crazy things. Skydiving, of course. They might die a bit early if they do that. They might have a heart attack on the way down. But at least you're strapped onto something. You're too old to do it by yourself. Anyway, they strap you to another person, off you go. So this is foolishness, and it's trying to squeeze some last bit of sense gratification out of a dying body. It's embarrassing. Or if you got a bit more notice, you retire old, and you go and chase a little white ball around and try and pop it into a hole, like that, with a stick. Well, you may walk around. I missed by that much. Anyhow, I got it in. Yay! It's a very, very exciting way to pass your old age. Or you get the big balls and you try and get close to the little ball with your mates. And when it gets that close, so this is Kali Yuga old age, preparing for death. I don't know what sort of birth you would get if you were sort of always throwing a ball or chasing a ball. I guess a dog. Dogs like to chase balls, fetch things and follow them around. They get all excited and their tails flap around, so I guess I can relate to it. A very different setting here. And also mentioned in the purport, Srila Prabhupada gives us an insight to the culture of sages and householders, how the average householder would keep at least 10 cows. Any householders here? Hands up. How many cows do you have? You don't have any cows. At least 10 cows. So but you have a dog? She has a dog, sorry. But that's what's become. People have dogs now. They keep dogs. And what happens if the saintly person goes knock on the door with the Bhagavad Gita? The dog comes and chases you away, tries to bite your leg off. And no question of milk. You get chased out. So the culture's changed a lot. You would be welcome, and it says that he stayed very long, and this is also based on the consciousness of the householders. If the householders wanted to derive some material benefit from the sadhu, he wouldn't hang around for long. Generally they want something. In India it's popular now. Bring the sadhus in, get them to fix your ailments, and you'll save some money on the doctors. Sadhu. But Prabhupada once was travelling on the train. It's a story that's often repeated. In India with his disciples, and they would tend to, I think it's described, they would tend to guard the door to the area he was sitting in, so people wouldn't bother him. But because the sadhu in India, people want to come and touch your feet and get some blessings. But somehow or other, a couple, 2 or 3 gentlemen snuck in, and Swamiji, please give us your blessings. So what blessing would you like? I think he said he had some arthritis or something, some pain. And the story varies, but the point is the same. Son says, let's ask for something, or my family. So they basically asking for material things. Srila Prabhupada said, you want my blessing? You see my disciples there with shaved heads and wearing saffron? This is my blessings. You become like them. And very quickly the gentlemen sort of, thank you, Maharaj, and off they went. weren't interested. They want material. So generally if the sadhus, if people want some material, but if someone has some genuine spiritual inquiry, like it mentions here at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, the householder should not foolishly ask a saint to deliver what is available in the market. So that boy could have gone to osteopath or chiropractor for his hip. You don't have to go to a sadhu for these sort of things. It's ridiculous. So Prabhupada says that should be the reciprocal relation between the saints and the householders. So that this culture of inquiry. So now we're seeing the ultimate inquiry from Maharaj Pariksit. They're going to be speaking for 7 days and 7 nights on this subject matter. What is the duty of a man who's about to die? What is the duty of a man? And the question is only for someone that's going to die in 7 questions and answers, not for somebody that's going to die in 7 days. It's for all of us, because we could die sooner than 7 days. We could die in 7 seconds. People drop dead all the time, unplanned. It just happens. And so this preparation has to be there, and we're very, very fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has given us this information very early in life, way before we're about to die, even though we can die at any moment, so that we can prepare our hearts and consciousness, so that at the time of death we're not foolish and hankering for this material world, for this material body, for our families, for our bank balance and all these things that may keep us here. We're totally prepared in our consciousness so that when death comes, Srila Jiva Goswami describes death for a devotee as walking along and dropping your chatta. So in other words, it's quite insignificant, because if you're fully engaged in devotional service, that just continues. It's a spiritual activity. It's not interrupted even by death. It just continues. Sometimes we may see the external symptoms of death. If you've ever seen devotees dying, it seems very perhaps painful, and they're struggling and to breathe and to remain awake. But generally the devotees, there's 2 things going on. The consciousness inside is very focused on the goal of attaining pure devotional service, wherever we may go. Generally the devotees aren't even interested, I'm talking about pure devotees, not even interested in even going to the spiritual world. Wherever Krishna wants them to go, they're happy to go, as long as they can engage devotional service, have the association of devotees. That's the number one desires of pure devotees. So that preparation is there. That's been given to us by Srila Prabhupada. We're very, very grateful. The cows are mentioned here as part of it. I should quickly give the plug for the cows, because they're mentioned in the purple. It mentions in the Padma Purana, a conversation between Lord Brahma and Narada Muni, that at the beginning of creation 4 things came first. 4 things. The Vedas, number 2, anyone know number 2? Brahmins. Fire, cows and Brahmins. And he went on and said if these 4 things weren't there, the whole universe would have gone to ruins. That's how important these things, because obviously you have the Vedas, you have the mantras to chant, you have the fire, you have the ghee, and you have the Brahmins. These is the basis. People think that everything starts from an explosion in outer space. A couple of rocks somewhere or other, I don't know where they came from, and they decided to bang into each other and make peacocks and skyscrapers and people. Not pretty incredible rocks, isn't it? I'd like to get a couple of those rocks. I'll chuck them together and see what happens. And oceans too, and cauliflowers and so many other things came. Pretty special rocks. Or we accept the authority of the learned scholars in the great Vedas. They explain that everything begins with great intelligence and the Supreme Being, and sort of works its way down. So Lord Brahma, the first created being, is a very intelligent and powerful living entity who was able to engineer the whole universe. And Brahmins, cows even came very early. People think that cows is something. They're still doing research on the origin of when cows first became domesticated. I read an article recently. I think now it's about 8,000 years ago. But you read the article, they go, actually we don't know. We've been looking for a long time. Because you'll find nowhere in any history where cows were wild. And some caveman came along, saw a cow, and she was sort of spacing out, and he said, "What's that underneath?" And this milk came out, and he goes, "Hey, let's make some ice cream." And that's what people think happened. They accidentally bumped into a cow. Now, cows were created at the very beginning, very sacred animals, and their produce, all their produce, their dung, their urines and milk, and was utilised by elevated spiritual personalities. Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me once that when he was down near Gokul, we were talking, he told me that sages used to live just off milk in the Himalayas, and they would drink the milk within half an hour milking, and if you drink it at that particular time, it has everything you need for human body to fully survive, fully healthy. And Prabhupada mentions that in the purport too. I think he uses the words vitamins, meaning all the nourishments. He says, even the poorest household would keep at least 10 cows. Even the poorest household would keep 10 cows. So we must be really poor if we haven't got 10 cows at least. Anyway, he mentions here that it's a perfect food. Yeah, anyway, it's in there somewhere. He used the word vitamins. Yes, so Tamar Krishna Maharaj told me that if you drink milk from within half an hour, then you don't need anything else to survive. It has everything you need, because after half an hour it starts to change a bit. The enzymes start to die. And it's perfect temperature, and if the cow's treated with love and respect, then that milk is saturated in the same way with that caring love from the mother. So it nurtures the sadhus like that. And we can see Sukadeva Goswami, that's how he survived. He would pop in at milking time every morning and get his little, I think Srila Prabhupada says a pound of milk, which is probably about 600 mils, like that. Done for the day. We have even more austere personalities. Raghunath Goswami, I think every second day used to have a cup of buttermilk. He survived. So that's anyway. It says that in this age, in Kali Yuga, I heard Gopiprana Prabhu say that in Satya Yuga you could survive on air, in Treta Yuga on water, in Dwapara on milk, and in Kali Yuga rice. So we have a bit of rice as well. Not just milk. A few side sabjis around the rice, a couple of chapatis, a bit of chutney. But anyway, and a bit of milk. Anyway, this is a different age. But anyway, the point being is the cows are very sacred, and they're an intricate part of spirituality and great saintly persons, and they're not to be neglected, they're to be protected and looked after. As we do on this farm, we have 95 odd cows, and they're divided into the various herds. We have the very old cows that Gita looks after. Then there's the ones that are getting older, the over 50s. They have over 50s special residences these days, but not like this one, have pool tables and spas and all that sort of stuff. So you can get ready for death. And maybe bubbling in your spa as you have a heart attack. I guess that's a good way to go. And then we have the dry herd, which is the younger cows that we're going to possibly breed and milk. And then we have the milking herd. This is where all the milk is coming from for their lordships. And devotees can also get this fresh milk. And now Jita Prabhu's got the pasteurizer there. You'll be able to make sure that you won't, if you're concerned with the milk from the farm, that you may get sick or whatever. It'll be the real deal, just like in the shop, pasteurised. And then we have the bullocks, the young boys that are currently pretty much unemployed, but they get looked after and they get trained and they're ready to go. A little bit like you have the army reserves, they train on the weekends, just in case there's a war or something one day, they're ready to go. So our boys are ready to go. But as time goes on, I think we'll be engaged more as more people get involved. It's part of our philosophy, and we should set an example at least. Even if we can't fully live the lifestyle, we should show people that cows are wonderful and they should be utilised in all ways like that. Okay, I've plugged the cows. We've spoken about this wonderful setting, this compassionate, very wonderful question that's saturated in compassion and thought for all living entities. It's not just for himself. The answers are going to be for all of us. And if we study the Bhagavatam daily, we chant that verse, Nastapadeshu Bhadreshu, that the abhadras are things that trouble our heart. It's explained that just about completely removed. And I've always wondered what that meant, and I heard Srila Prabhupada in the lecture in Vrindavan 1976. He was speaking from the 5th canto, but he quoted this verse in his purport. And he said when he got to this almost, he said 60, 70%. You have a numerical amount, and that means nishta. You can come to the platform by hearing Bhagavatam every day, becoming steady in your Krishna consciousness. So the anarthas, the things that in our heart that interfere with our pure bhakti, they're diminished or kept down to a minimum by hearing Bhagavatam. So Bhagavatam is a very important part of our culture. It's one of the principal 5 angas, and Srila Prabhupada established this program of hearing Bhagavatam every single day, and as much as we can throughout the day, like that. I'll finish on that note. We have 5 or so minutes. If anyone wants to comment or ask a question, or last day Kartik, it's the last question you can ask till Kartik next year. Grab the mic up. One question.
Circle, but maybe a bit unrelated. Reading Srimad Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada was saying in the introduction that of the five main principles elaborated in Bhagavad Gita, that only karma is not permanent, not eternal. But at the same time, he also says that material nature Prakriti is temporary. So how can Prakriti be temporary but at the same time eternal?
My understanding out of those 5, the Prakriti is eternal. It's always there. It's either manifested or unmanifested, but it's eternal. It's one of Krishna's energies. It's activated. It's like a light switch. It's on and off, but it's always there. That's my simple understanding.
If it's abhyakta, if it's unmanifest, then how is that eternal?
Because it's there in the dormant stage. Oops, turn this off. Sorry about that. Why not? Okay, that's my simple answer. If someone else wants to add to that, they're welcome.
I was thinking about this. I just wanted to share, learning from the 3rd canto, when it's talking about Brahma creating the universe, and his secondary creation, and part of that is he had to create the nescient engagements. So it says Brahma first created nescient engagements like self-deception, the sense of death, anger and frustration, the sense of false ownership, and the illusory bodily conception, or forgetfulness of one's real identity. This sense of death is like a creation of Lord Brahma, like not different from the soul. It is different from the soul, it's a creation of the universe.
The sense of death.
Really interesting, the way it's phrased that.
It's not something that's discussed a lot in our modern society. People don't want to talk about death. And I tell my doctors all the time, what's the big deal? It's just so common. People are dying all the time. It's like, isn't it? People are dropping dead every day. I mean, now you can get the scores just on Corona every day. You can see, most of us sort of check the daily scores, and you can see how many. That's just from one thing, from one disease. But it's, like Srila Prabhupada said, it's 100% death rate. So and that's the living entities that are ignorant, that don't have this knowledge of Bhagavatam. They're in fear and anxiety because they don't know what's in front of them and they want to keep what's behind them. So they're in limbo. It's not a nice place to be. Srila Prabhupada's given us clear front vision. We don't have to worry about behind. We just look very clearly ahead and strive as much as we can to become pure in our consciousness and let Krishna take care of death. We don't have to worry about death. It's just a little passage in time. It's like when, I love that description of, I'll finish on this note, of when Prithu Maharaj leaves his body, and when they're in Vanapras with his wife Archie, and then he leaves before the wife, which must be very difficult for an old lady. She has to, make the big fire pile and get her husband's body on there, and she lights him up, and then she entered the fire as well. And then, from a material point of view, if you don't have any spiritual knowledge, you think, oh my God, how horrible and painful. But it's described in there that the heavenly damsels in the aeroplanes are watching. And it says as she's walking into the fire, there's a Vaikuntha aeroplane taking her away. She's gone. And that's what the demigods can see, because imagine from a spiritual point of view, she's already there. It's instant. So death is not a significant thing for devotees, as long as we prepare as best as we can. And Srila Prabhupada's the best death coach you can ever get. He's coaching us along every day, how to prepare, isn't it?
Coach and death coach.
Life, very nice. He's our life coach and death coach, Srila Prabhupada. You can't get a better, mentor for preparing yourself than Srila Prabhupada in his books and his devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaura Premanandi. Kantik Matsu, Srimati Radharani ki jai.